Put that up in here and this pops open this panel here. Hey everybody, Brooks from Drag Times here. In today's video, I'm measuring the power output of my Tesla Model 3 Performance and my Tesla Model Y Performance. So in a previous video you might have seen, I did performance testing of the Tesla Model Y. And while it's not as quick off the line as the Tesla Model 3, the top end power is right there with the Model 3. With the Model Y testing almost 115 miles an hour in the quarter mile, and that's right in line with what my Model 3 does. Usually I get about 115 to 116 miles an hour trap speed out of the Model 3. Now while the quarter mile came in at 11.9 and this does 11.6, that's just that initial pulling power. And my kind of theory is that for the Model Y to be pulling just as hard as the Model 3 in the top end, while the Model Y has got to be heavier, it's a bigger car, I'm thinking the Model Y actually makes more power than the Tesla Model 3. Now, of course, because everything's closed due to the current situation with the coronavirus, I can't hit the dyno with both cars, but we really don't need to. Now, Tesla doesn't have an OBD2 port in these cars because they're just not required to. However, there are some other ways to intercept signals to get a ton of statistics out of these cars, and it's really, really cool. So basically, you have to buy an OBD2 or a CAN bus interceptor dongle, which what I'll show you go right behind the seat here. So you just need a kind of plastic pry tool like we have from Blackview. Put that up in here, and this pops open this panel here. This is the connector you need to disconnect after the car's completely powered down. All we're basically going to do is going to put this and intercept it. That gives us the OBD port right here that we can use with our app to measure all the statistics. All right, so here's what it looks like after the install is complete. We just basically intercepted here. Now we have our OBD2 port and our Bluetooth adapter, which we will plug in. Connects to an Android phone. And then from there, you can download a couple of apps. I'm using Scan My Tesla right here. And this thing has a ton of really, really cool stats for your Tesla. So if you're a data person, you want to see all the background stuff that's going to your Tesla, this is a really cool setup to install. All right, so once you got your Android device, you've downloaded the Scan My Tesla app, connected your Android device to the Bluetooth dongle, which is connected into the car, you open up the Scan My Tesla app and you can see a bunch of really cool stuff here. I don't know what half the stuff is, but if you go to the All tab right here, you can see just all the different things that you can view live in the car. So I'll scroll down here, but you can see we got battery voltage, battery power. Here's what's interesting. You got the front, this is what we're gonna use. We got the front power and the rear power in kilowatts. So we're gonna measure that in this car, then we're gonna hop in the Model Y and measure that and just see if the horsepower is the same. You've also got front and rear torque and pound feet, which is really cool. And then you got all kinds of cool stuff. Max, regen, power, steering angle. You can see that change live. Accelerator pedal press. You can see me doing that. Brake pedal on or off. Regen total, drive total. A lot of stats for the entire car as well. You can see there's my odometer for the car. The battery pack size, you can see that as well. I'm assuming these have the same battery pack sizes. So let's do some testing of what the Model 3 makes to the front and the rear. All right, so as you can see on the screen here, we got the front and rear power in kilowatt, as well as the torque, and then the battery power. So let's see what the max battery power is on the Tesla Model 3 Performance. Give it a stop. We'll just do a quick sprint here. Let's go. All right, so the max discharge power was 431 kilowatt there. All right, so if I click on there and we get the max battery power 416. If we look at the front and the rear, we got a max of 384 and 250 in the rear. All right, so now I'm in the Tesla Model Y. It was an easy transfer. Basically, all I had to do is unclip that connector from the other car, put it in this car. You have to power down both cars completely beforehand to make sure that nothing gets out of whack when you unplug that cable. But within 5 minutes, I had the connector in here, plugged the Android device in, connected to Bluetooth, and brought up all the stats. One really interesting to notice that I noticed right off the bat was the battery pack size is actually bigger in the Model Y. If I bring up the all stats here and I scroll down to where the battery pack size is, there it is. It says nominal full pack 77.5 kilowatt hour versus the Tesla Model 3 is 72.5. So this Model Y actually has a 5 kilowatt hour bigger battery than the Tesla Model 3. And of course, based on what I did performance testing, my feeling is because this weighs more and was trapping almost the same as the Model 3, I'm pretty sure this makes more horsepower. Let's give it a try. And that's really all you need because the power starts to drop off the faster you go. So max power right there was 195 in the front, 263 in the back. That's quite a bit more power than the Tesla Model 3. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna do a couple more runs just to make sure, because sometimes when the battery's a little hotter, you get more power, and then we'll come back and summarize all the data. And for good measure, we'll give it one more shot. Results there a little higher. 198 in the front and 265 in the back. All right, so before I get to the heads-up comparison of the Model 3 and the Model Y, let's go over the data. I think the first big surprise, maybe not, was that the Model Y actually has a bigger battery than the Model 3. It's 5 kilowatt hours larger, and I think that just is to get some more range out of it while compensating for the additional weight over the Tesla Model 3. I've heard that the two cars share 75% of the same parts. Now on to the peak power numbers for both cars. After I found out that the Scan My Tesla app can actually log data, I didn't get those during the videos that you just saw. So I went back out, charged both cars up to about 98%, did runs, recording the data so I can show you actual power graphs. And so these peak numbers are a little bit different than what you saw in the actual video I did. On the Model 3 front motor, 180.5. Rear motor 255, combined 435.5 kilowatt. For the Model Y, it made more power, 198.5 on the front, 270.5 on the rear for a combined total of 469. Now if you convert that to horsepower, you multiply that times 1.33, you get 579 for the Model 3 and 623 for the Model Y. This shows you that the Model Y is making about 45 more horsepower than the Model 3. So what does that mean? Maybe the bigger battery pack allows for more power. I'm not so sure what 5 kilowatt hours actually does. Maybe the motors are different. I'm thinking the motors are the same and they're just giving more power to the Model Y to make it a little bit quicker to compensate for the weight. So the question I have is that power going to be available on the Model 3? Another 45 horsepower in the Model 3 would make quite a big difference. I mean, the car would be dipping well into the low 11s and trapping maybe close to 120 miles an hour with that additional 45 horsepower. So Tesla, come on, update this with launch mode and add 50 horsepower, and let's get some faster Model 3s out there. All right, so now on to the power graphs of the output in kilowatts from both cars. Now, the Scan My Tesla app has some latency issues with recording the data. So I'm not sure if I reduce the number of recorded parameters, it will be faster, but that's why in these graphs, it's not entirely smooth. You'll see some dropouts. That's because for every sampling, there might not be a data point for each. But nevertheless, they sent me some software that allows me to overlay the graphs roughly. But it's pretty clear by looking at the graphs what's happening here. The Tesla Model 3 has more torque on both sides down low, which accounts for that better 0 to 60 time. And then the Model Y has more power, so after that peak torque of the Model 3, the Model Y comes up in power and actually holds that power throughout the power band. Now this graph starts from 0 to about just over 100 miles an hour. So over this time span, you can see while the Model 3 peaks power earlier, allows for that really hard, or that much harder launch than the 3. I wouldn't say it's really hard, it's not like a Tesla Model S, but it's definitely launching a lot harder than the Model 3. And then after that, you can see where the Model Y just makes more horsepower along the entire range. So now that the Tesla Model 3 is my daily driver, I plan on doing some things with it. I'm either going to add the track pack from Tesla, I really like those wheels, or I'm going to add some other lightweight wheel options. I'm looking at a couple different options from Unplugged Performance, T-Sport line, maybe HRE, but I'm looking to drop about 10 pounds per corner. I'm going to drop the suspension a little bit. That should allow me to bring my times down from 11.6 down to the 11.4, 11.3 range that I've been seeing some of the Stealth Model 3 performances run down the quarter mile. Alright, so that's a wrap of this video. In summary, bigger battery pack on the Model Y, more horsepower on the Model Y, and very, very similar from a roll, which I'm about to show you right now. Thanks for watching.